Karma here with your Mars in Virgo cheat codes. If you are here, you understand that we are astrologically influenced by the tug and push of the planets and stars. With the understanding of how this influences us in life, we can better navigate life's obstacles. So welcome to the club, and let's jump into the energy around Mars in Virgo. So on June 17th, Mars will enter Virgo and it will exit Virgo on August 8th. The signs that are most impacted are Virgo, Cancer, and Gemini. So the Virgo energy and the Mars energy are kind of different, right? Mars is really around your actions, the desire you have, your passion, the things you move forward in and initiate, right? It's also captive of your aggression, your courage, your confidence, the strength that you have. Whereas Virgo energy is more of like a systematic, analytical energy. It's really about the mentality you have around the systems you put in place in like your everyday routines, right? This is kind of like your routine nature. Also, this Virgo energy goes into the realm of like pessimism and perfectionism. So Mars, the actions that you take in this moment for everyone, right, with Mars and Virgo, there's an emphasis here on your actions being in the realm of analysis, right? Now, this energy also is kind of like opposing. Mars is kind of impulsive. Okay, it rules over Aries. It has an impulsive nature about it and maybe like a short stay type of nature, like quick to action type of nature, whereas Virgo is very like diligent. There's an emphasis here on like your actions and almost like a tug of war around you sticking to something and creating a system around it. Or if it's not perfect, the war between like you moving on or you working, pushing forward and continuing to find ways that will improve the systems that you are putting or have in place. Mars really gives you the push and motivation to kind of move forward towards efficiency. So that's what Mars is working on in Virgo in this particular moment. So on the higher vibe of this energy, you can find systematicness, like efficiency, very goal oriented. And then like on the lower vibration of this can come with perfectionism, criticality, and pessimism. So really, let's talk about the aspects that actually happen. All right, Mars is sextile to Jupiter. Jupiter will be in Cancer. So that is going to be related to opportunities, discoveries, your habits, your methods, and your systems. You have Sun sextile to Mars, and the Sun will be in Cancer. So your focus, again, will be around your methods, your home, and like your internal security. Then we have Venus square Mars. This is going to be an energy around like perfectionism and actions around like your mental persuasion. Okay, so we're going to go into, I'm not going to go too deeply into the overall thing because we'll talk about it sign by sign. However, let's talk about how to look at this. This will be for the rising signs. This will be most accurate for rising signs. Okay, if you want to look at this from your sun sign or your moon sign, you can, right? For your sun sign, you will need to look at this from the perspective of your focus, the perspective of your ego and pride, the perspective of your attitude. If you're looking at this from the perspective of your moon, this is going to be related to your emotions, your instincts, your intuition, and your habits. Okay, so if you want to look at it from a different point of view, just make sure that you understand the difference in the lens that you're looking at it in, okay? But again, with the signs, it is going to be most accurate for the rising sign. All right, now let's jump right into it. For Aries, Mars is going to be entering into your 6th house of Virgo. Okay, so there's a heavy emphasis here on your daily routines and the habits that you have. Okay, now Mars represents your actions, it represents your courage, it represents your desire, your passion, all right, your initiative, right? So there's an emphasis here of you exploring your actions around your daily life, your actions around your routines. So when Mars enters Virgo on September 17th, there's going to be a separating square happening to Uranus in your second house, and there's going to be an applying sextile to Jupiter in your fourth house. Okay, so Uranus represents sudden change, it represents rebellion, it represents evolution, okay, and it rules over Aquarius. So in your second house, right, your daily routines, again, we're talking about your actions within your daily routines. There's square energy here with your second house. So you might see something that pops up that kind of challenges your energy around your material values, your possessions, right? Your intimacy, your appetite for food and sex, right? This is your house of Taurus. So this is like your resources, okay? So you're going to see energy that pops up in your daily routine that impacts, right, how you are also acting in how you treat your values or your possessions, your finances, things of that nature. Then on the 22nd, Mars is sextile, or in addition, Mars is sextile to Jupiter, right? So it's in an applying sextile, and that's between your sixth and your fourth house. Okay, so this is opportunities that arise at home, right? That relate to your actions within your daily routines. All right. So you're going to see opportunities at home that kind of could possibly trigger some concentration or perceptiveness of your triggers around home, or this could be your finances around your homes and your habits around that, right? So again, if you have a mortgage and you always wait till the deadline, or you wait till later to pay your mortgage, you always get that late fee, right? And now you've run out of late fee waivers, and now they like, nah, you got to pay that, right? And now you might come and like reconsider your actions as it relates to your finances, right? So we're talking about that type of energy. Okay, so at the same time, you know, not related to Mars, but still related to Mars because everything is related. You have Neptune and Saturn sitting in your first house. Okay, so there is an emphasis here of a square between your fourth house and your first house, right? So your Neptune and Saturn sitting in the first house of Aries, there are lessons around yourself right now. Neptune and Saturn just entered into Aries, right, earlier this year, and there are lessons around your focus or your soul's purpose or your attitude or your ego and pride, right? So there's an emphasis here between that house of home and that house of self, right, where the energy also still is not really connecting too well. On June 26th, the sun will be sextile to Mars, okay? So the sun will be in the fourth house, okay? And it'll be right near Jupiter as well. I believe there's a conjunction between Jupiter and the sun on the 24th, and then Mars will be in an exact sextile on the 26th, right? So there's heavy emphasis here on your actions, again, in your routines and the impact it has on your home. This sextile energy is opportunities that arise for you to kind of consider the actions that you are taking within this realm of routines for yourself. And with the sun and Jupiter sitting in your fourth house, right, there is an emphasis here on like a trigger. Could be a trigger because again the sun is combusting Jupiter at the same time. That kind of helps you focus a little bit more on refining the routines that you have, okay, around home especially. On July 23rd, okay, Venus will be square Mars in the third house. So there is an emphasis here. The square energy is like oil and water. This is Virgo and Gemini. Air and earth don't mix, right? So with this energy, there's an emphasis here on your routines because again, the overall story of Mars, right, specifically Mars, is to help you to change your habits or change your actions in the realm of your habits, right? So with Mars in Virgo, your sixth house, the idea is there is a change in action, right, that is needed around your routines, around your daily habits. Okay. So now that with this square energy, which is like oil and water on your third house, right? So your third house is your mind. That is your communication, right? That is your perspective, right? That is your processing, right? So that square energy, right? The energy is not really flowing. This is like a mental trigger. This is like your mind going insane, Gemini, which is, curiosity, imaginative, your mind going insane over actions within your routines or your habits in this particular moment. This is July 23rd, okay? So there is an emphasis here for you, Aries, around the actions that you take in your daily routines. There is a need for you to pay attention to your actions within your routines, and this is actions within your routine for everybody, but this is specifically about your routines in your routine system and how that plays a part in your value, your personal wealth, your finances, lending and borrowing, and also your home, right? There are aspects to those houses, and then also square to your third house of mind, right? So this is like a difficult energy to navigate, especially around your mind, especially at the end of Mars, near the end of Mars in Virgo, right? Your mind is going to be kind of going haywire about the routines and habits that you have, right? So pay attention, especially again, Jupiter in Cancer. This is where our intuition pops up and helps us to discover new things, right? So pay attention to where your intuitive urges are taking you in this moment, but also pay attention to what you are triggered in within your daily routines and habits, okay? I hope this message reaches you well, Aries. Leo, so Mars will be entering into your second house of Virgo. So this is your house of your possessions. This is your resources. This is what you value. This is your self-value, right? This is lending and borrowing, your material possessions, your appetite for food and intimacy, right? This is, the house of sex as well, your personal wealth, okay? So with Mars in Virgo in your second house, Mars is going to be concentrating on your actions around these things, okay? So as Mars enters into Virgo on the 17th, right, there would have been something that happened in your first house of Leo when Mars was in Leo, okay? So there would have been a square to Uranus in your 10th house, okay? So there's something here that you've been working to achieve, right? There's something here that you would have been working to accomplish a goal of some sort. And with Mars in Leo at the last, parts, the last degrees of Leo coming into a square with Uranus, this would have bubbled up some energy that may have felt like difficult for you to navigate, right? So now that moment has passed, and this is something that would have happened in the last week or two, okay, for you. So now that that moment has exposed itself, right? And this is oil and water energy because this is Virgo, or sorry, that was, because this is Mars is now in Virgo, that was fire and earth energy, which doesn't mesh, okay? So that's why it's square energy. So in this moment, as Mars is making its way into Virgo, right, and separating from that point where you would have felt a little bit of tension, right? This is where you start to work on what it is you value. Okay, like what do you truly value for yourself? What value systems do you have, right, within this and the actions that you take for what it is that you value? Okay, and again, this is around your ambitions and goals. There's something here that seems difficult to kind of work out within that realm of life, and you're trying to be patient and you're trying to be resourceful and you're trying to be practical, but your actions are not supporting that, right? Your actions in this moment don't feel as though they are supporting that. And with, Mars in your first house, there's something here that has happened that has triggered some sort of pride or ego or shift in attitude. So now your actions now become centered on systematic behaviors that kind of adjust what it is you value or show what it is that you value. Okay, so that is what's happening as Mars is transitioning into Virgo. This is like a shift from something that you've experienced already over the last couple weeks, and now we are going to start to create actions and systematic behaviors around how we value something or someone, because the second house is also like a house, a relationship house as well. It's ruled by Venus, right? So it's a relationship house as well, right? So like your possessions, possession of a person as well, possession of money, possession of resources. Okay, so this is a systematic, this is systematic behavior pushing towards, right, attaining something of value. Now, once we get to June 22nd through June 26th, okay, there are a couple things that happen. On the 22nd, Mars is sextile to Jupiter, okay? On the 24th, the Sun and Jupiter go into conjunction, which is like a combustion of Jupiter. A combustion of Jupiter. Okay, so the positive features or the positive energy of Jupiter in exaltation in Cancer, and I explained this in my Jupiter in Cancer video, is impacted by the Sun, right? The Sun kind of overpowers Jupiter as it passes by Jupiter, right? So this energy is happening between your second and your 12th house of Cancer. Okay, so there is an emphasis here, right, on the 24th, where there's a sextile to Jupiter, right? There's an emphasis here on like your fears or your dreams, your desires, your fantasies, illusions, delusions, pain, past, secrets, mysticism. This is the house of hidden, okay? And right, this is your perceptiveness of hidden things, or your perceptiveness of your fears, desires, and how all of this plays a part in your subconscious, okay? So there is something here that is happening between your second and your 12th house that requires you to kind of figure out your value system, and whether or not the actions that you are displaying are allowing you to attain the value you are actually seeking. Okay, the resources that you are actually seeking, the possessions that you are actually seeking. Okay, and then in that 12th house, there's going to be that conjunction or combustion between Jupiter and the Sun. All right, and that is going to expose something, but it could be a little bit triggering, or it could be a little bit emotional as well. All right. And then you have the Sun sextile to Mars in, again, the 12th house in the second house, right? So there's an emphasis here, and the Sun will not be too far from Jupiter anyway. It'll be like 1 degree away or something like that at this point. So they're still very close to one another. So there's something here around opportunities that pop up. So like there's expansion and development that happens on the 22nd, and then there's something that pops up on the 24th with that combustion between Jupiter in Cancer and the Sun in Cancer, and then there's something else that might pop up on the 26th that exposes something to you, right? Because now this is sextile to the Sun from Mars. Okay, so there's an emphasis here on like your material value and the actions that you are taking within that realm of your life, right? And exposure of something hidden, exposure of your subconscious, or how your subconscious operates, okay? This also could be illness. This also could be health related as well, because that is what the 12th house rules as well. All right, so that is what is happening on the 22nd, 24th, and 26th. So now once we get past that energy, right, Mars moves through Virgo without any other aspects until it gets, almost to the end of Virgo on July 23rd, when there's a square to Venus in your 11th house. All right, and Venus represents love, beauty, and abundance. It represents relationships, right? So again, for Leo, this could be related to a relationship, or an actual person, or this could be related again to your resources, because Venus represents all of that. Okay, So there's square energy to your 11th house. So this is like your friendships, right? This is your acquaintances. This is your allies. This is your hopes and your wishes. This is your earned wealth. This is your employer money. Okay, this is sudden blessings as well. However, this square energy is a difficult energy because this is Virgo and this is Gemini. Okay, so these energies don't mesh too well. All right, so there's an emphasis here on you paying attention to your actions within the second house, because again, this the bottom floor of Mars and Virgos is your diligence and your systematic behaviors and actions around desire and passion. Okay, so within your 11th house, right, there's some square energy, there's like a difficult energy to navigate, right? And now you are going to be presented with energy in which you might be required to pivot from the things that you were working on as Mars was working its way through Virgo. Again, the last aspect we had would have been, June 26th. Okay, now we're at July 23rd. So now you've had almost a month of like doing the same things or, practicing a specific behavior, and then something else pops up and it's like, surprise. How are you going to adjust to this, right? And this is going to be within, your community, okay? So overall, Leo, Mars in Virgo is an energy that is going to require you to concentrate your attention to your behaviors as it relates to your possessions or what it is that you value, your resources, right? And create systematic behaviors that support your highest and greatest good within that realm of life. You will see triggers around your fears, your desires, secrecy, and you might see triggers around like your friends group, and you needing to adjust your behaviors so that you can continue to move forward to your highest and greatest good. Okay, Leo, I hope this reaches you well. Sagittarius, Mars enters Virgo, which is in your 10th house. That is your house of your ambitions and your goals, your achievements, the accomplishments that you want to attain. Okay, so within this energy, Mars in Virgo is going to work on your habits around how it is you attain such ambitions, goals, and achievements. On June 17th, Mars has entered Virgo. Okay, now it creates a square to your 6th house. So there's an emphasis here around your daily routines. The 6th house is actually ruled by Virgo. Okay, so this is really a heavy emphasis on your routines and your ambitions. So there would have been something that was triggered in your 9th house, right? Because Mars is coming from Leo into Virgo. So it would have created a square right before it entered Virgo. So in your 9th house, which is your house of Leo, this is your house of discovery and exploration. There would have been something that was triggered for you, and ultimately you would have felt that energy in real life. There was some sort of struggle there that happened around discovery, exploration, travel, second life partner, higher education, law, ethics, your worldview or your ideologies. There would have been something triggered within that because Uranus is sitting in your 6th house of Taurus. Okay, so that would have created a square to Mars in the 9th house. So once Mars moves into the 10th house, Uranus is in the realm of Taurus for you. Your 6th house is in the realm of Taurus. So there's an emphasis here for an ease of energy. Virgo and Taurus energy, they're of the same element. So as Mars was coming from the 9th house in fire, which does not mesh with Earth, it is now entering into another earth sign. So this emphasizes energy around you being able to be flexible around your daily routines, the things that you do, the practices you keep in healthy habits to attain something better for yourself. In addition to this, Mars in Virgo is in an applying sextile to Jupiter in the 8th house as well. So it's getting close to creating some sort of opportunity for you. All right. Once we get to June 22nd, Mars will be sextile to Jupiter in your eighth house. And that is, ruled by Scorpio, but it is in the realm of Cancer for you. So there's an emphasis here on some sort of transition happening as it relates to your goals and your ambitions. There is an emphasis here around your routines and your diligence within your routines, creating opportunities that will help you transition on to something better. Okay, eighth house also represents um your bonuses. It's a trick bag. Your bonuses at work. It represents death, regeneration. It represents mystery. It represents your past. It represents a lot of stuff. Okay, mystery. It represents your legacy. It represents shared resources like your spouse's money you share with the spouse or other people. It represents karma. It represents so much. Okay, so there's an emphasis here on some sort of transition that's happening that will beget you to move on towards something better should you contribute your efforts towards diligence around your daily routines. Okay, there's a transition happening for you. So there is also, I'll talk about this in the Cancer in Jupiter in Cancer video, where there is a combustion on the 24th. So there is an emphasis here as Jupiter and the sun get closer together, because a combustion is a conjunction between the sun and Jupiter. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. And there's an energy around heightened intuition with that. There's an energy around emotional depth and you understanding yourself, on an emotional plane, understanding yourself better on an emotional plane. As the sun gets closer to Jupiter, it combusted. So those positive attributes of Jupiter exalted in Cancer are kind of lost. Okay, so as we get closer to the 24th, right, that sextile that happens on the 22nd, and may not necessarily feel the greatest because again, the sun is applying a sextile to Jupiter, so the sun is starting to overshine Jupiter. But as we get to the 26th, when the sun makes its way past Jupiter, the sun then becomes sextile to Mars. So there's an emphasis here around exposure of something. Okay, and this is between your 10th and your 8th house. So there's an exposure here of some sort of transition. There's something here that is developing and expanding. This could be, behind the scenes mystery to you, right? But something developing and expanding in your commitment to your dedicated actions around achieving your goals and ambitions. As long as you are concentrating on doing that, this becomes a positive sextile where there's something here that bubbles up in reality and you get to see an opportunity. Again, on the 24th, there is a sextile between Jupiter, but with the sun getting close to Jupiter, you may not necessarily feel like this is like the most positive thing, because again, the sun is combusting the positive attributes that relate to the exaltation of Jupiter in Cancer. So as Mars continues to move through Virgo, right after the 26th, there are no aspects that happen until July 23rd. So the concentration for Mars in Virgo is just you consistently working on the habits and the routines that will get you towards your highest and greatest good as it relates to your ambitions and goals. So once we get to July 23rd, okay, there becomes a square to Venus in the 7th house. That is the last aspect that happens in Mars and Virgo. Okay, so essentially what this energy represents is earth and air. Earth and air don't really mesh. They are difficult energies to combine. But what this speaks to is, as Mars made its way through Virgo, you would have been, or should have been, concentrating on diligent efforts around your actions as it relates to your ambitions and your goals, right? Continuing to put in that effort day after day after day to accomplish something. Okay, there's an emphasis here. When we get to the 23rd, you're going to need to pivot. Okay, so Earth is, I am very, diligent about this practice. I'm going to do this over and over again, especially in that Virgo energy. I'm going to do this over and over and over and over again. Once we get to July 23rd, there is a change in that energy, because now what it requires is for you to not do that over and over and over again, but then become flexible in your actions, right? So again, Mars is around your actions, your passion, your desire. So instead of doing something over and over and over and over again, I like to do this day in and day out, day in and day out. That's what you will be practicing all the way up until the 23rd. And then as Mars hits the last decan of Virgo, it creates a square to that Gemini energy, that air energy, which your mind has to become flexible around what it is that you are doing to attain your goals. And that for some and most will likely be a difficult pivot, right? This is why it's a square, because it's going to require you to stop, adjust your mind to understanding what is actually happening, and adjust your systems so that you can continue forward towards your highest and greatest good. The idea is not that you stop action. The idea is you adjust your actions and become flexible and limber in how it is your mind is working, so that the actions can continue on helping you towards your highest and greatest good. If we think about life, if we do the same thing over and over and over and over again for the rest of our lives, that's going to get pretty boring and mundane, right? Like in many of all situations, right? All situations, sometimes it requires us to be able to pivot and be flexible. So this is the energy that we run into on July 23rd, is the pivot and be flexible with your energy. Now, this square happens because after Virgo, then Mars goes into Libra. Okay, so there's an emphasis here on Mars. Then you have to, again, your actions, right, have to become then peaceful and diplomatic, right? So this is, again, luring us into a change of behavior, so that when Mars goes into Libra, we can then concentrate our actions in the diligence, right? We don't lose the lessons that we've learned. It's just now, how can I translate that into being diplomatic or fair or helpful, right? In that Libra energy. Now your actions become helpful. It goes into the realm of peacemaking and harmony, because Libra is one of the signs that Venus rules. So again, this is actions around harmony after consistent action. Okay, so again, overall Sagittarius, there's something here between your 10th and your 6th house, and also your 10th and your 8th house. So there is a transition happening here for you as it relates to your ambitions and your goals and your overall routines, and how that contributes to your accomplishment of those goals. So just really concentrate, while Mars is in Virgo, concentrate on repetitive actions and consistency, diligence, and systematicness. Try not to be pessimistic or anything. Just concentrate on diligency, systematicness, as well as consistent. Okay, and if you do that, you will begin to see your efforts pay off. Okay, Sagittarius, I hope this message reaches you well.